Hi, welcome to the motivation chapter. For this talk, I want to talk about the motivation cycle and some of the content within the chapter I want to clarify. So, one of the keys principles in this chapter is that a person, or you as a leader or manager, you don't motivate people, and people do not motivate you. What people motivate themselves, and what you can do as a leader is influence motivation by creating favorable conditions. In other words, you create the conditions where the person can choose to be motivated. And you can see here, this is one of the models from the chapter of the motivation cycle. And in this cycle, behavior drives performance, and then performance receives an outcome, and then outcomes impact behavior. And then the cycle continues. So the cycle is influenced by the environment. Now, behavior can be an observable movement, it could be a verbal statement, or it could even be a nonverbal cue, such as a thought. And how employees direct their behavior. Well, a lot of employees will move towards things that are desirable. In other words, they're motivated moving towards what they want. And others may be motivated by moving away from consequences or things they don't want. So, for example, some people practice social isolation because they don't want to catch the coronavirus. And then a third way is kind of a combination of both towards and away. And then moving towards something desirable is called effort, and moving away is called withdrawal. Now, simple strategy for influence. A leader learns how their people direct their behavior and can create conditions to influence them by amplifying either the towards or away. The formula for effort. Persistence is the time invested staying on task. Force is how one directs the energy. And how would you describe your effort in attending college applying this formula? In other words, if you think about why did you decide to go to college, and come up with your answer, and then you look at your answer and you can see whether you're moving towards, say for example, a dream job, or whether you're moving away from being stuck in a situation where it's difficult to be employed, or maybe it's a combination of both of those. Formula for withdrawal. Withdrawal is moving away from something by intention. So in the workplace, level 1 withdrawals like tardiness, level 2 is absenteeism, level 3 is turnover. These could all be signs of someone moving or withdrawing from their work situation. Have any of you changed your major since you started school? If so, you may have found that you relate to this formula for withdrawal. All right, Peter Drucker was a prolific writer in management theory. And in characteristics of performance, he defined being efficient as a task accurately completed in a timely fashion with very little waste. And certainly managers are interested in efficiency. But he also talked about effectiveness, and that's a decision that leads to a useful result that is best for the situation. And management should be both effective and efficient. It achieves the intended purpose in a timely fashion with little waste. So Drucker was famous for the quote, "We often focus on doing things right when we should ask if we're doing the right things." And this, by the way, became a defining characteristic between a manager and a leader. Outcomes are the reinforcements for performance provided by the organization or other entities concerned with the performance. So the reinforcements are in the forms of rewards and punishments, so it ties into the behavioral theory. and which is the basis for operant condition. Now the environment is a factor, so it encompasses elements and conditions that influence the motivation cycle. For example, here we are in a COVID-19 outbreak, and the environment's a major influence on organizations. Internal environment are those elements inside an organization that directly influence employees, and external environment are those elements outside that influence the organization, like the COVID-19 virus. The external environment, microenvironment, the area around the organization that directly affects and is affected by the organization. And this commonly in normal times is factors such as local government, economy, and natural forces. Local and federal government are both factors right now as they put restrictions on businesses due to the virus. And then we have key stakeholders such as customers, suppliers, shareholders, distributors, politicians, and competition. The external environment and the macro environment includes factors that are global in nature and have an effect across industries and nations. So, for example, we have a travel restriction right now because of that. Elements of the macro environment are outside of the control of an organization. This could be the political climate, technology. For example, artificial intelligence is going to be a strong driver of change. Legal issues, natural forces such as weather, global events, peace and war, economic trends. It's a primary source of change. Also, there's individual qualities. There's 4 frameworks: biographical characteristics, personality, knowledge, skills, and abilities, and competencies, and then either intrinsic or extrinsic motivation. Biographical characteristics include age, race, gender, culture, length of service, cultural diversity, for example, is increasing in organizations today. Personality is your style or patterns in thoughts and behaviors, and they tend to be stable over time, such as, say, extroversion, introversion. And then you have knowledge, skills, and abilities. Sources of individual motivation. Some people are motivated intrinsically. They find satisfaction in completing a task by itself. Others are more motivated by external rewards like grades or compensation, other factors outside of yourself. We all have elements of both, although many of us may prefer one or the other. In management, some managers who have intrinsic locus of control tend to make decisions based upon criteria that they hold inside of themselves, so they can make a decision in one meeting, where a manager who has extrinsic locus of control is going to want to check with key other people, and typically they're going to take 2 meetings to make a decision. So typically you would go to them in meeting 1 and present something to them, and set a date to come back and visit them for the decision. Thoughts, values, beliefs, attitudes, and intention. Thoughts occur in your mind, and in organizational settings we think of 4 kinds of thoughts: values, beliefs, attitudes, and intentions. And you can see here the definitions. Beliefs, what you deem to be right or wrong. Intention are decisions or choices to behave in a certain way. Albert Ellis describes relationships between events and beliefs, emotions, and behavior. And what's key in this model is an event happens and a person forms a belief about the event. And here's the key: the person then bases their emotion and behavior on their belief and not the event. And as a result of this, multiple people can experience an event. You get different emotions, different behavior. And why? How is that possible? That's because they have different beliefs about the event. Now, people also will form beliefs that are not true, and then they still base their emotion and behavior on the beliefs. And so as a leader or manager, you can challenge their beliefs when you suspect they're not true. For example, a common place where I would do this is working with labor and management leaders. They oftentimes would have beliefs about each other that basically were not true. And when we ask them to check their belief out with another leader, they often then would discover that. And then when they discovered that and were able to change their belief, that would allow them to change how they felt and also change their behavior. And the last model is the knowledge, attitude, and behavior model. And in this model, it describes a relationship between a supervisor and an employee. And notice this, that a supervisor's behavior becomes the knowledge for the employee, and that's the basis for their attitude and their behavior. And then the employee's behavior becomes the knowledge for the supervisor, and that becomes the basis for their attitude and behavior. And this is a cycle. And so what we think is that a supervisor can best change an employee's behavior by changing their own behavior first. In other words, if they change their behavior and how they're interacting with the employee, that becomes the employee's knowledge, and the employee can change their attitude and then their behavior.